Guys, welcome back to Scottish Mixed Martial Arts. I'm Martin Hamilton. I'm joined today by Michael Blair. How you doing, Michael?
I'm all good, mate. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. It's been a long time coming. So, Michael, your next fight is at Forza Fighting Championship 9, and it's against Darren Lansdale. How do you see that fight going?
To be honest, I don't really know anything about him. I've not seen any of his fights. I've no idea what kind of style he's got. But that doesn't bother me at all. Just gotta go out there, see what he brings, and then just implement my game plan. And I think there's definitely going to be some aspect of MMA that I'm better than him at, and I'll win the fight in that way. If it's striking, it's striking. If it's grappling, it's grappling. That doesn't bother me. I can do whatever.
Yeah, because now you're saying that was something that I kind of noticed as well. I was trying to do a wee bit of research into him, and I couldn't find much out about him. And you never know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I know.
There's
no way to know. He could be better than you expect. It could be. Hopefully, he's no worse. I'd rather he was better.
Yeah,
I've got in my head. I don't want to go in and fight dafties. Do you know what I mean? That's not why I'm here. I want to challenge myself. I want to take the toughest fights. I want to see how good you are. Hopefully, it's decent. It's a good fight.
No, and that's something that's always kind of to be admired about guys like yourself. That was noticed in your last fight as well. You took on Mark Ewan, who yourself and Mark, you're two of the UK's most highly rated kind of young lightweights. So to see that as your first kind of professional fight, it was amazing to see because I was talking to somebody about this the other day, but MMA, it seems like it's evolving a wee bit more into boxing, and guys are needing to pad their record a wee bit and fight a couple of cans before they can get in these, we'll put quotation marks on it, like big shows. But you're getting to the big shows without having any real fight experience, it's facing real adversity, facing real high level opponents, and it's just that's where guys get found out.
Definitely. That was always the beauty of MMA compared to boxing, that you could get a couple of losses and it wasn't looked upon as badly. But in boxing, if you get one loss, that's you done. You're a shambles. You're a disgrace. But in MMA, no one's that bothered. It's just about the level of opposition. And you want it to stay that way. Do you know what I mean? You don't want to fight guys who are 0-0 in your pro career, get 8 wins and then go to the UFC and get found out. That's worst case scenario in my opinion. I'd rather have the tough fights, build your record the proper way, and go in there with the right experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like you were saying there about MMA's got so many variables.
Exactly.
There's so many different ways that guys can win. Because you and Mark, you could have fought 10 times. And there'd be a different winner, or a different outcome, nearly every time as well. Right. So it's just, a lot of the time in MMA, it's just who's the better guy on the night, and that's always the beauty of it. Because a lot of the time there's very rare you go into the fights and you go, right, this is what's going to happen, and this is the round that's going to end. Whereas with boxing, a lot of the time you can kind of guess how it's going to end. And
definitely. That's how you're trying to put a bet on the boxing. The odds are terrible. There's a favourite, but it's like 100 or 1 to 100 for anyone that's no bad. But in MMA, you can't have those odds. The underdog wins more times than in boxing, definitely. So that's the beauty of it. Do you know what I mean? Anything can happen on any given night. That's why we all love it.
Yeah, absolutely. We were saying there, your last fight, it was at Holytown Havoc. It was against Mark Ewan, and unfortunately, you experienced your first ever loss. But what was your biggest learning experience from that?
It wasn't like there was one wee thing that I'd done wrong, like dropped my hand and caught with a big punch. It was just wee details that I had to shore up. And I think that's it's just experience. Like Mark I think he's had 3 or 4 times the amount of fights I've had with MMA, Thai, boxing and stuff. And I could tell when I was in there, there was wee movements he was doing, wee fakes and feints he would break off in certain positions, and I could see he was calm. And I was trying to take his head off with every punch. You know what I mean? So it's learning from that, implementing that stuff in the next fight, chilling out, not try to rush stuff, and going back to the gym after the fight, working on the wee details, wee things I've done wrong, and make sure they don't happen again.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the best way to kind of look at it as well. Because a lot of the time, it is the guy that's got the most experience, and the guy that's most kind of comfortable in there on the time. Because you'll know as well that the more you're in there, the more fluid everything becomes for you, and the less you kind of think. And you know, if you're thinking and the other guy's not, then the other guy's most likely getting the better of the situation. It's more fluid.
I think a big thing with that comes as well, see getting as many fights in as possible. Not even like in a over a certain time period, but like in quick succession. The more you're in there, the more comfortable you are. I think when I started out, I had 4 fights in like 8 or 9 months. And I remember my 4th fight, I was the most comfortable I've been in there. And since then, it's just been like 1 a year. And you forget that feeling when you go in. So the first couple of minutes every fight, you're like, fuck's sake, man. This guy's trying to take my head off here, what's going on? So it's just getting used to that feeling. The more you're in there, the easier it becomes. Everything's a wee bit slower. Yeah.
Because what I wanted to ask you as well is, how did it feel? Like, see, because you fought in like Celtic Gladiator when it had like no crowds, and then you went back, and your first fight back was Holytown Havoc, which was at a hometown show, and the crowd looked absolutely amazing for what I'd seen. What was that like, just getting back and seeing your family in the crowd, seeing your friends, having your teammates? Like, I noticed during the fight that you had Nathan Jessica at the side of the cage. He was shouting in instructions. I think he was shouting about elbowing off the break and stuff like that. So you had your teammates there for your support. How did that feel to you, like, after fighting with no crowd, to just have everybody back and experience it again?
That was magic. Like, it's good fighting with no crowd. There's no as many distractions, but the pros outweigh the cons for having the people in the crowd. It's the noise is brilliant. Like, you want the support there. You want to hear the cheers. If it's the booze, it's the booze. It doesn't matter. You just want to hear the noise. Having people like Nathan there giving you advice and stuff, that's ideal. But fighting with no crowd, for me, it didn't bother me too much. It was once you're in there, you zone out completely. When you're fighting with the crowd, you just hear like the murmur, if that makes sense. You just hear the whoa, but you don't hear, a lot of time, you can maybe hear Brian, you can hear Chris if he's in the corner, whoever it is. You can hear your coaches, you can hear the opposition coaches. But it's the same when you're fighting with no crowd. It's just a wee bit clearer. So not too much of a difference.
Because a lot of guys have had that different experiences on fighting with the no crowds, and what some of them have mentioned is that they visualised, like, so see, I know a lot of gyms, they like to do like ring walks in the gym, like for the sparring sessions, running up to a big fight, and then they do it where like it's dead silence when you're fighting, like no one's talking. Is that something that you guys ever do? Like, do you buy too much into that visualisation?
No, I think the visualisation is important, but we don't do it too much in the gym. We moved into a new gym, new facility. We've got the cage up from Holytown Havoc. That's been a big bonus. Stepping into the cage, like walking up, stepping in, hearing the door being locked, that helps you. Like, obviously sparring with whoever it is, if it's Jordan, Ryan, Chris, whoever. Obviously I know fighting, sparring, but it does help with the visualisation of the fight. You hear the canvas bounce. That's different to the mats in the gym. Stuff like that is important. But I don't think, as long as you're prepared and you don't let it get to you in the moment, I don't think it's too detrimental to not focus on it, like, as much as making like fake ring walks and stuff. I'm not too bothered about that. I like the fact that it's new in the moment, if that makes sense. I like the hearing the crowd and stuff and experiencing that for the first time. I think in the fight it's important to visualise like certain aspects, like we do if you're on bottom, how you getting up here, you're behind with 2 minutes left, how are you going to go out and get the finish. Stuff like that's important. But I like the new experience of stepping out to the crowd, hearing the noise, and just seeing what emotions that brings out.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, to be fair. And I think everyone's kind of different, but their kind of preferences as well, and every gym's kind of different. So it's just that it obviously works for you guys, like what you are doing, and the proof's in the pudding with the guys that are coming out of your gym at the moment. So, like, my next question was going to be, like, what aspect of your game have you seen the biggest improvement in since your last fight?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I've just been working on a bit of everything. I'm going to put more of a focus on strength and conditioning this fight camp. Started working with Adam Lusby at Enhanced Sports Performance, guy does Paul and Jordan's conditioning, and even had a session with him yesterday, just going over some tests, some mobility stuff. And even from that, you can see he was able to point out just wee things in your physiology, or your right knee's turning in at this point, your shoulder's moving this way. We would fix that. The reason this is going to be an impact on you is when you turn this way, this is going to happen. And every time you're saying it, I was like, this happened to me. Fuck's sake, like, this is wild. So even wee things like that, I'm looking to improve upon. I've not placed like too much of a focus on any like aspect of MMA since the last fight. Just been working everything, same as always. But I go through wee phases. Sometimes I like the boxing more than everything else, then the wrestling, then the grappling, whatever it is. It's just whatever springs to mind at the moment. But that's what you're doing.
Yeah, because I've seen a lot of the kind of videos that Adam puts out there, and seen some of the improvements made in your teammates, especially like the likes of Paul Craig. Like his improvements have been put, like you can see that visually, like
that's huge,
in the UFC. But like guys at Jordan Strong as well. Like when you hear the improvements that he's made, like on like his cardio, and like because I follow him on Instagram, and some of the runs that he does, it's like probably like his warm up runs, like absolutely insane. So it looks like whatever he's doing is working really well for you guys, and it's just. It helps everyone in this country as well to have guys like that, because seeing the work that you guys are putting in and seeing the work that Adam's doing, it pushes everyone else on, because
definitely
as the bar gets raised, everyone needs to raise with it, and I think that's hugely important to the kind of advancement of the sport here in Scotland.
Everyone has to up your game based on what everyone else is doing. Like if you don't, you fall behind. And in MMA, it's still a new sport. Do you know what I mean? It's only been around 30 years or something, so it's still evolving every couple of years. You'll see that way new fighters. You get guys like Peter Yan, Corey Sandhagen, like a couple of months ago. How high level that fight was, and how different it was to fights that you'd watch 5-10 years ago. So like everyone's trying to get a new edge on everyone, and at this point, it's like strength and conditioning. It's like a big aspect of it.
Yeah, because we spoke about this a wee bit off air, but I just wanted to know your kind of thoughts as well, because like Forza have just announced that they've got a 4-man lightweight tournament that's happening on your event. Like, what are your thoughts on this?
So I love the tournament format. I think it's brilliant. Back to the Wild Wild West days in MMA. I know Gary McMillan's doing it. Gary's as game as they come. He was annoyed it went from open weight to lightweight. He wanted to fight the Giants. That just proves how game he really is. But, I love the format. It's tough going. If you get a tough fight the first fight, and then someone gets an easy bye, so to speak, and you have to meet them in the final. But I love it. I can't wait to watch it.
Because like you mentioned your teammate there, you mentioned Gary, as Sean Chalmers likes to call him, the bull in the vagina shop, which he now says I need to refer to him as anytime I speak about him. But I just love that he was like the first person to put his name in the hat. So like everyone else kind of knows what they're walking into now, whereas he was just like, fuck it, I'll take on anyone. Whereas other folk, you'll see them kind of waiting to see what names go into the hat before they put theirs in. Whereas he was just straight out there, like, let's go.
Definitely. Gary's as game as they come. There's any time, anywhere for him. And as you said, there'll be a couple of people looking at it, waiting to see what names are there, and then picking and choosing if they want to step in there. But Gary doesn't give a fuck. He's just like, right, tournament, I want to fight. I want to have my dreams of fighting in Pride, fight the Giants, whatever it is. Lightweight, I'll take lightweight, but he doesn't care. That's how he's good. Do you know what I mean? He just doesn't care. That's his strong point.
No, absolutely, and he's one of those guys that his record is he's so much more better, than his record would suggest.
Definitely. He's had some tough fights. He's fought some good guys. Do you know what I mean? His past couple. If you're not one of the top guys, you're not beating Gary. Even then, Gary can beat anyone on his day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's like really strong grappler. His striking's getting better every week. He's a tough go for anyone at this point.
And I think it's that way as well. Like when you're an amateur, like your amateur career, it shouldn't be about being afraid to lose, because
definitely.
Your amateur record, like, no one remembers your amateur record. Like it'll disappear. So taking those tough fights early on, that'll prove dividends when you finally hit pro as well.
100%. It's all about experience, isn't it? All about trying to challenge yourself. There's no point fighting shite guys and just giving people downs just for the sake of doing it. It doesn't make sense. Amateurs are about getting experience, learning your craft in there, and then when you go pro, you're comfortable, you know what you're doing. So it's guys like Gary that are doing it correct. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been well kind of documented as well that when Paul's fighting abroad, that you go with him. So you're part of his team on fight night or in fight week. Like, what have been the best experiences you've got from that? And have you improved as a martial artist through this because you've been able to go to places like the Performance Institution, you've been able to go to places like Extreme Couture, or you've been travelling the world? How has this improved you as a martial artist?
Oh, it's definitely made a difference. Going to like different countries, seeing how everyone in the UFC does it, seeing like how obviously professional MMA, but seeing how professional people really are, how serious people are taking it, every wee detail taking into account, does make you up your game. You see the level people are performing at. Even in the back, you see how people are warming up, how their breathing exercises, different things like that, how different people handle like the pressure. Like Damon Maya fought in the same show as Paul when he broke Jamal Hill's arm.
Yeah.
And Damon Maya was in the back sleeping for ages. Like you can tell he's done it that many times that it doesn't bother him. Whereas some people are up jumping about, he's lying just chilling. So it's just wee things like that you pick up on, how different people deal with the situation, and it makes you better.
Yeah, because you're being around like the best in the world to do it. You're around some like different coaches as well, because like different countries have like their different kind of stamp on MMA. Like mostly in Scotland at the moment, we seem to be heavily striking based, whereas a lot of Americans they've got different kind of levels to their grappling, and it's more easily accessible. Is that something that you've found, that you've been able to pick up kind of different traits, different techniques and stuff to bring back to your gym?
Aye, definitely. You can pick up anything from anyone.
Yeah.
Everyone has their wee tips and tricks, even if it's someone can not be in the same level as you, but they'll maybe be really good in a certain position. And when you go away, you see that way. You can look at Paul. Like Paul's probably got one of the best guards in the UFC. His string's getting better, but it might not be on the same level as like one of the really top guys, like striking wise. But if you go to the ground him, you need to be aware. So like everyone has their strengths. Do you know what I mean? And you need to pay attention. You need to find out what people are doing. You have to listen to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And Michael, you were one of, like, we're going to use air quotes again, but like the new age amateurs. So you were one of these guys that when you were an amateur, you looked like a professional and you seemed to be training like a professional. Have you made any huge differences since going from amateur to professional, and like your training, your diet and your lifestyle?
There's not been too much of a difference. Like everyone in the Hit Squad takes it really serious from the first fight. Like you can see how, like when I was starting Paul and Bungard, how they were training for their fights, and you would just emulate that. Do you know what I mean? You were getting in as good a shape as possible. We were having to do rounds with them, so if you weren't in shape, you're going to get an absolute dude. So not much has changed. Maybe like a couple extra sessions here and there. Maybe I focus more on the diet and stuff. Before it was, amateur, you can make some catch weights and things. You can fight same day, 75 kilo, 74 kilo. Obviously, it's pro now, it's 70 kilo the day before. So it's maybe a greater focus on diet and stuff, nutrition, being a wee bit more aware of that. But not really, not too much of a difference. Everyone took it serious from the beginning.
And I think that's kind of the beauty of what's happening to like Scottish MMA now, because you hear kind of like horror stories of how it used to be, where like guys would they'd weigh in for a fight and then straight away they would go and get a Chinese. And just like wee things like that, and you could get away with it. Like you could get away with just kind of turning up on fight night, no real and half-arsing it, and like maybe getting through it. Whereas nowadays you can't, because guys, a lot of amateurs now are dedicating their whole life to MMA, and it's only going to benefit the sport in the long run. But you've just got this kind of conveyor belt of guys, because like we'll look at your gym, for example. It was you and Jordan who were the highly rated amateurs in your gym, and then now you have moved on to pro. It leaves like the likes of Ryan Campbell to come through as well. So it just seems like there's just this big conveyor belt of absolute talent coming across the country.
There's always someone new coming up. Do you know what I mean? Like Ryan can go pro whenever he wants, but Ryan's as high level as they come. He's an absolute nightmare to spar with. You've got guys in the gym like Dean Housley, who's in there. I think he's 1-1 now, but he's a nightmare to spar with as well. So you've always got guys coming up. Max, who's about 6'3" now, he gets bigger every week, but I think he's only 18. You've got new guys coming in all the time, making you up your game. So it's brilliant to see. You know what I mean? There's no stagnation in Scottish MMA. It's only going up, only getting better.
Because how old were you when you first started mixed martial arts, or when you first started martial arts?
I think I was just turning 19. I was like a week before I was 19, something like that. I started, then had my first fight 20, I think it was, but a year later. A bit later, so I've not been doing it too long, like 5 years.
Because that's the thing I think you're finding more and more now, which is getting quite terrifying, because the talent which will be there in like 10 years' time is kids are starting out at like 10 years old, starting mixed martial arts instead of like trying out taekwondo or Thai boxing or jiu-jitsu. Like they start off in mixed martial arts, so it's going to be terrifying like where the talent in Scotland is within a few years.
100%. New guys coming up in the next few years, it's going to be a different level. As I said, like the sport's always evolving, and the younger you start, the better you're going to get. By the time people are like 20, 22, they're going to be seasoned pros.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They'll have had 10, 15 fights when they start their amateur career at 16, 17. So it's only going to benefit just the sport in general.
And I think that's the thing as well. I think, see, especially for you guys, that you have had people like Chris and Paul who have been there and done it, and they might have made mistakes early on in their career, but they've made the adaptations that you guys don't need to make those same mistakes, and they're finding things out to pass things on. Is that kind of going to be part of your journey as well, that the things that you're learning early on in your career, you're looking to pass down to some of the guys that you were saying earlier, like Max Breedle?
Aye, of course. Anything you can help your teammates out with, it's important that you do it. Do you know what I mean? Any wee thing you come across, if it's in a fight, I done this, he done that, you have to tell people. So I mean, there's no point in keeping it to yourself.
Yeah.
So even if it's a technique wise, if it's you throw the right hand, if it drops, this is going to happen, blah blah blah. Or if it's preparation, right after I weighed in, I ate too much food, I had an Nando's, I ripped arse at it, I didn't feel good, just watch what you're eating. Stuff like that, just wee daft things can go a long way sometimes.
So just the last question before I let you go and let you get back to it, but what are your goals for 2022?
For 2022, I just want to be as active as possible. Maybe try and get 4 or 5 fights in, all things go well. I just try to put a bit of a run together, try and get back in there, get some momentum going, and rack up some wins. Because
I know it might be different for you as you're a pro fighter now, but are you looking at competing in any other competitions? Are you looking at doing any of the Scottish Open grapplings or any grappling events or stuff like that throughout the year?
I'd love to. Anytime I don't have a fight, I'd like to be competing in something. If it's grappling, if it's maybe get some Thai fights in or something like that. If there's no MMA shows going, definitely I'll take any combat sport I'm interested in doing.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And thanks very much for your time today, Michael.
No, pleasure, mate. Thanks very much.
Is there anyone you want to shout out before you go? Any sponsors, any teammates, anything like that?
Just all the boys in the gym. Brian Gallagher, head coach, all the time he puts in. All the boys for helping us prepare for this show, and just hopefully people tune in March 27th. See some good scraps.
No, I think they will. From what I gather as well, the event's sold out. Like Enzo sold out all his tickets. And I think it's just some of the fighters have tickets left, but there'll also be a pay-per-view link as well.
I think so.
Yeah, so it'll be looking good, because there's a lot of really good names on the card. I was very impressed when I was looking through the card the other night, and some of the names that were jumping out at us.
Aye, that's starting up well. That should be a good night of fights.
But thanks very much for listening, guys, and thanks again, Michael, for your time.
Pleasure, mate. Thanks for having me on.